This podcast is produced by OnPod, a video content studio near you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are here with Rebecca Wilson, owner of Arborvida. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It'll be amazing to get into what you do. So for listeners who are new to your work, how do you describe what you do as a conscious leadership coach?
Okay, so I like to use this analogy of like an internal operating system. So you have your laptop on the table there. A laptop runs on an operating system. We run on an internal operating system. So a lot of traditional leadership development programs focus on the apps or the software, offering new, for example, like a change management training where you're going to learn some new practices, maybe a new framework, some tools and strategies that you can apply to do something more effectively. Most traditional programs will take for granted the operating system of the leader who is undergoing that development program. So, what can happen is as new programs are being added to the leader's repertoire, they can find that there's some limitations of the operating system that are actually preventing them from fully um, deploying those new practices, those new behaviors. So, for example, there can be different beliefs, value systems, patterns of behavior, even things that are like happening below, mostly things that are happening below the surface of a leader's conscious awareness, below the level of mindset. It's happening at the nervous system level, at the deeper beliefs level, at the subconscious level. And as complexity evolves, as there's greater complexity in the world around us, as there's more challenges coming a leader's way, it's really important to not just look at what apps are being downloaded, but to also look at the operating system that those apps are running on. So what I don't do as a conscious leadership coach is say, here's your new operating system. Here's the beliefs that you're going to have. Here's what you should value. It's not dogmatic work where I tell people how to be. It's more work of guiding people in really curiously examining and bringing awareness to their operating system, to what's happening maybe below the surface, to what what's happening in the moment to moment experience of their day, and to practice this like observational quality of being able to observe themselves as they move through their days and really get curious about what's driving their leadership.
Makes total sense. So you have to update that software based on what's already there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then working with folks to very gradually do some rewiring in the direction that serves them better. So, for example, if they're coming in and they have a particular goal and they recognize, wow, I have some behaviors and some beliefs that are really not in service of that goal, that objective, then I can work with them to look at, okay, well, what's a belief or a behavior that would be more in service, and how can we curiously like sort of create, test, implement some new pathways in the brain that help
Yeah.
guide you in that direction.
Right. Speaking on that, you said rewiring. So you worked in neuroscience research, as well as consulting and healthcare before founding. What was the turning point that led you to create this new chapter of work?
Yeah. So it was a very gradual shift for me. And if I look back, one of the through lines in my career has been that I've always wanted to do meaningful work, to use whatever talent I have to do something positive in the world, and then B, something that's always been very natural for me is this orientation towards helping people grow and develop. So whatever role I played in the past, I always had sort of this um, proactive turning towards how can I mentor others, how can I coach others, how can I develop others. And I eventually, I think I always knew that my career would take me in a direction of coaching. in some capacity. What was more of a surprise was how I've come into coaching and the conscious leadership aspect of coaching and leadership development. And that really happened as a result of my own personal interests and this, I'll say, like, journey I was going on in parallel with my professional life. So I was developing as a leader, but then at the same time, I was starting to get really curious about things like yoga and meditation and having big explorations into questions of purpose and meaning. And as I was going down that path, what I saw was that some of the questions and practices that I was engaging with at a personal level were really rippling out to impact how I was showing up at work. And I was noticing that I had this natural inclination to want to share what I was learning with people. So my LinkedIn posts started to naturally be more about mindfulness and purpose and values. And it was just a very organic shift that happened within me where I started to feel like this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to help people with. And drawing that linkage between the worlds of mindfulness and leadership was such a big unlock for me that it felt like something really timely and, yeah, meaningful to focus my work on. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that you have a neuroscience background. But what does inner mastery actually look like in a day-to-day leader's life?
Yeah, I love this question. And it's so subtle. It's so subtle that I'll give an example of something that a client shared with me recently. So, this client is the leader of a large public sector organization. And he's been working with me for a little while, a couple years now. And he shared that he walked into a meeting recently and it was a rather, I'd say, objectively stressful type of context meeting. He was sitting there, something came up in the meeting, and as it came up, he noticed himself about to respond in a certain way, and he paused and he stopped himself in that moment and chose a different route to go down. And that to me is this subtle example of inner mastery in that it was a stressful context for one, which is like that's like Olympic level challenge when it comes to trying a new pattern, trying a new behavior on. And he was able to not only notice himself in the moment and see what was about to happen. But he also afterwards spoke to his team about exactly what was happening in his inner world in that moment.
Mhm.
I was about to do this. I chose to do something differently. And his team was like, how did you learn how to do that? So it created this interesting conversation as well, where he was able to not just, keep this little practice to himself, but also share. But what's really cool about this is like a couple months earlier, he had very excitedly shared with me that he had been adopting this new practice in the mornings of noticing which sock he put on first and challenging himself to put the opposite sock on first. So, this super seemingly insignificant, mundane practice of like noticing himself in the process of putting a sock on first, noticing where he's normally running on autopilot, letting that operating system just drive his behavior without his conscious awareness, and was deliberately practicing slowing down in that mundane moment and several other mundane moments like that through his days, so that when it came to the high stakes meeting, he had that wiring in place. He had that capacity to pause and slow down because he'd been practicing it so regularly. So that's one example that I really enjoy of what inner mastery can look like. It's so subtle. No one even knows it's happening. What they see is a leader who appears calm and centered and like they are in control of what's happening in the situation.
Yeah, it's like maintaining total mindfulness 24/7 so you can be self-aware all the time.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
right.
that is, um, that is what we practice towards, and it's an ever evolving practice for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, it makes sense why people meditate and everything like that, so you can be like that all the time. But you coach a lot of executives and founders who care deeply about impact. So, what are some of the most common inner challenges that they bring to your coaching space?
hmm Um, I would say the crux of the challenge that I hear about from impact-driven leaders is caring so deeply about what they do and not wanting to be so consumed by what they do that they miss the moments of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, this sort of leads to conversations about, how to quiet the mind, how to care without worry, how to slow down, how to create boundaries that feel empowering, and that kind of thing. And a lot of it, at a deeper level, starts to come back to, okay, what are the beliefs that are driving your current pace of work, your current orientation towards solving problems for your team. So it can bring up a lot of interesting opportunity to explore behavioral patterns, tendencies, things like that. But I would say that's the key challenge that I hear about is, how do I balance these aspects of being deeply purpose driven, impact driven, caring about, doing an awesome job. A lot of people I work with are super high performing, and that's another one of those things that's just wired into their operating system is to be good at everything they do, to do things well. And then how do I balance that with like wanting to, savor the moments with my children when they're young and enjoy a walk in nature without being stuck in my head the whole time, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
With that being said, how do you help them quiet the noise in their mind? Like, what practical ways can they create a sense of inner spaciousness with when everything around them feels so urgent?
Hmm. Yeah, this is the key. So, when everything around them feels so urgent and finding that sense of inner spaciousness, I think one of the most important things is to know that like slowing down is not an all or nothing game. It can be something that is gradual and so subtle. So you said there, how do you find inner spaciousness in the midst of the chaos? And that's, I think, the key is to not try to perfect our attempts at spaciousness, but to know that we can find it even right here as we're talking on this podcast. I can take an extra breath. I can pause for an extra moment. I can create that spaciousness that I'm longing for in the cracks. And what's interesting that happens is as we start to practice this and try it out, then again, you start to see that operating system that says, slowing down isn't safe. Slowing down equals missed opportunities. Slowing down equals uncomfortable. And then there's this rich playground to play in to like explore what's there for us.
You're even calming me down in the way that you're speaking, in the way that I can tell that you're weighing the things that you want to say very carefully, but also not severing the connection between a thought and what you're going to say in the future. Because I feel like sometimes this is just a personal example. When I stop and try to relax a little bit, I find that the pathway of my thought is severed, and then I don't actually get to the point where I need to be. So I think that just comes into like you have to practice mindfulness and you can't be as anxious so that you don't dissociate instead of getting where you need to be.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're very calm, and I can see that you would be a person that I would listen to come to advice for that sort of thing. So it's good to, what do they say? Practice what you preach.
Yes. No, absolutely. Yes. I learned this through practice, and this is so interesting. This is a bit of a tangent, but um I for most of my life was the most nervous public speaker. And I had done like Toastmasters and all these other I'd practiced and like taken all the opportunities I could to just like practice speaking publicly to get better at it and to overcome that nervousness that I felt.
Hmm.
And the thing that truly like moved the needle for me was mindfulness practice, taking time to pause and breathe, not in the high stakes moments, not when I'm on the podcast, when I'm doing, when I'm making breakfast, when I'm driving, when I have a moment to stop and meditate.
Hmm.
And then it carries through into the high stakes moments. It's really such a powerful tool.
Makes sense. We got to remember we're just a person. We're still a person no matter what.
Yeah.
So, the Conscious Executive is a 12-week journey to evolve the inner architecture of how you lead. So, what does that journey look like from the inside of someone going through it?
Mm, yes. So I mentioned, I see my role as a conscious leadership coach to help people curiously examine their inner operating system. And what's interesting is that with that curious examination, there's often a natural evolution of it. So it really does lead to these gradual shifts because once you see something, you're like, oh, I didn't know I was, behaving in this way on autopilot. Now that I know it's there, I have the freedom to choose differently. And many people will choose differently once they see a pattern that's not serving them. So the actual setup of the 12-week program is sort of three-pronged approach to helping people see themselves more clearly, see their patterns, see their gifts as well, the things that maybe others see that they don't. So the first step is the daily micro practices. So these are the invitations that I offer for people to slow down just a little bit so that their awareness can catch up with the pace of their life. So they can shift slightly out of that autopilot go, go, go state and give themselves a bit of space to actually notice what's going on within them as they move through their day.
Mm.
So that's the first piece is those daily micro practices. The second piece is 360-degree feedback. So then we actually look outside the person to see what the folks who spend time with this person observe, because it can be really challenging to see our own patterns clearly and objectively. So this offers that view of what are other people seeing, the people who you interact with on a regular basis. What do they notice about your patterns of behavior, your tendencies, your gifts as well, your energy? What are you most energized by? When do people see you at your most alive and effective? What are you doing in those moments? So we get that feedback from people around the leader. And then the third piece, which is also really helpful, is coaching. So coaching, as a coach, I'm able to often observe how someone's patterns are emerging in a conversation. I'm able to notice if they say something that points to a deeper belief they might hold. And I can curiously ask them questions that help them also shine light on something deeper that might be at play. So, through a mix of those micro practices, 360-degree feedback, and coaching, we're able to really create the conditions from which awareness emerges and folks can gain more freedom to be able to change how they're operating, what is driving their leadership. Um, there's also a really lovely full day nature immersion that I've built into it, which I'm so looking forward to hosting. And that's just an opportunity to really step away from the noise in a powerful way
Mm.
and to deepen connection with the leader's vision for what they want to create, how they want to deploy their gifts, and where they want to take things so that they can keep anchoring back to that as the why behind, why do I want to do this uncomfortable work of
Mhm.
changing behaviors and stepping into possibility.
I'm sure it's very nice to come back to a setting of grounding once you've had all that information kind of thrown at you.
Hmm.
But you did say that this course was light on information and heavy on integration. So, what kinds of shifts or results do your participants usually see after the 12 weeks?
Hmm. So at the end of 12 weeks together, what I typically hear are a few things. One is a deepened sense of connection to life, like a deepened sense of vitality, like, oh, I feel, and I'll hear the most beautiful, like little subtle stories of what this is like for people. Oh, I went for a walk with my dog and I could hear the birds. And I, instead of like kind of rushing my dog along, I went at the dog's pace and let him sort of lead the way. And it's those little moments is one of the outcomes that I hear about a lot, is just this feeling of like, oh, I feel connected to life again. And that can feel really lovely for someone who's been so used to running on autopilot, being really, really busy.
Mhm.
Um, so that's one piece. Another piece that I often hear is increased confidence. So just having this embodied experience of, oh, I can observe myself. I can actually enact change in my life in small, meaningful ways. And that can feel really like opening up of confidence. The other reason that I see confidence as being a common outcome is that we work a lot with belief systems in the work that I do and with understanding the nature of thought. So, when you're looking at the nature of thought, what you realize is that often a lot of the things that come up around, ooh, self doubt, questioning, how's this going to come across? They're simply thoughts. And that we have a choice of whether or not to like follow that train of thought or to come back to being present in the moment. And when people learn how to be present in the moment, they become a lot less caught up in their self destructive, self questioning thought processes. So it can just open up this beautiful well of confidence that's like not a superficial confidence, but a deep steadiness in themselves to
Mhm.
just be who they are and show up in that way.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on distinguishing a thought like that from intuition?
Oh, wow. Yes. This is a beautiful question. So thoughts, it's not an easy one, but what I will say is that there's a lot you can read into around intuition by sensing the state of your body when you have the thought or intuition. So if a thought emerges from a state of like agitation, you might be less prone to take that thought as truth.
Mhm.
When a thought emerges from a state of grounded presence, when you're, for example, I love being in nature, when you're out for a walk in nature and you're feeling connected to life and you have an idea that naturally emerges that's like, I think I might want to do this thing. And it comes from a place of steadiness, groundedness, and almost like an energy of trust. Those thoughts are the thoughts that I am more inclined to say, huh, I might take this and do something with it. Um, yeah, when a thought emerges from a state of agitation, from a state of hurriedness, busyness, and it's a self doubting thought or a questioning thought, I'm a little more inclined to pause on that and to say, okay, now I'm going to take myself out for a walk and see what emerges.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe it's that internal system that's operating on overdrive that you have to ask questions to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally, totally. So just having that awareness of thought and having the capacity to go, I'm having a thought
Mm.
that says I'm a loser, whatever the thought is saying. Like, and to have this bit of separation, this bit of distance from the thought, it
Mhm.
opens up so much. Again, in the realm of confidence, the realm of choice,
Mhm.
and that's definitely a big outcome that I see for the leaders I work with, is just feeling this like, wow, if I don't have to just follow my train of thought constantly, I'm so much more steady in myself.
Mhm. Amazing. So if a leader is listening right now and recognizing themselves in that kind of description, like successful on paper, but feeling a bit disconnected or depleted, what's one small grounded step you'd invite them to take this week?
Hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to evolving one's inner operating system, it's essential that you develop some embodied evidence for the change that you want to make. So, for example, I I recommend as a place to start, just slow down. Slow down in some small, subtle way, right? And when people hear slow down, they might think, oh my gosh, I have to cut back my workload. I have to, say no to more things. Like it can create all kinds of implications when we consider what it can mean to slow down. But often, the most important thing place to start is to just look at how can I slow down just a little bit to prove to my inner operating system that it is safe to do so, that I am okay, that all the things that are programmed into me that say all these awful things will happen if I slow down, that those are perhaps untrue.
Mm.
And that I can get some embodied, felt evidence that, oh, actually, I can pause and take a breath and the world doesn't collapse around me when I do that. All my worst fears don't come to fruition. So, my recommendation is to practice in a way that feels accessible to you where you are right now, to slow down just a little bit. And anyone who says, I'm too busy to slow down, the only way out of busyness is to slow down enough to gain some perspective and to reprioritize and to shift patterns. The whole cycle of busyness, of overwork, of overwhelm. Yes, there are absolutely external factors that contribute to it, but breaking free of it is so much more an inner game than people recognize. And the key to overcoming the inner barriers to change around slowing down is to start to give yourself some like micro doses of practice in it. So, yeah, find those opportunities to slow down just a little bit.
Mhm.
Slow down. One I often offer as a very practical one is like anytime you think of it, try to slow down 5%. Type 5% slower.
Mhm.
Speak 5% slower. Walk 5% slower. Not a big difference. Other people won't even notice that you're slowing down that little bit, but you're slowing down just enough to feel what it's like in your body, to notice what fears and narratives maybe come up that resist that slowing down.
Mhm.
And you will gain so much awareness by just doing that little practice.
That makes sense. I can even feel like breathing slower would kind of help that too, just to, like
Totally.
you said, prove to yourself. Now, Rebecca, is there any one person that has changed your life, perspective, or direction?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, it's lovely to get this opportunity to call someone out. So I shared yoga teacher, well, yoga has been a big part, but yoga teacher training in yoga was a big area of life that's impacted me. So I had a teacher whose voice is still very much in my head, encouraging me regularly to take a breath, um, to move at a little bit of a slower pace. And her name is Catherine Ann Flynn, and she is a psychotherapist here in Ottawa. She's since shifted her own career path in that direction, but she's incredible, and she is definitely one of those people that's profoundly impacted my life and shifted my direction in a meaningful way.
That's amazing. I'm sure you're now that voice to many other people. But for leaders who feel called to this kind of work, where can they connect with you and learn more about Arborvida and the Conscious Executive?
Okay, so I have a website, www.arborvita.com. And on that website, there is a page where if you feel called, you can sign up and do a 5-day reset with me. So, this is a 5-day by email. Every day, you will receive a specific invitation that will help you become more aware of your patterns that are driving your leadership and to essentially open you up to more choice around how you're showing up on a daily basis. So if you go www.arborvida.com/gift, and Arborvida is spelled ARBORVIDA.com/gift, and you can sign up for that, and it's totally free. And if you really stick with it and do the 5 days, I promise you will gain some new perspective and some practices that you can carry with you into your work and into your life.
Sounds great. Yeah, we'll link it down below or wherever you're seeing this video. But yeah, get a taste of that microdosing of calming and confidence to become a better leader. But thank you so much for being here today, Rebecca.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been a total pleasure.